We're planning this web event in September, which is, I think, going to be tremendously exciting. The idea really was to reach as many readers and book groups and interested people as possible, actually at the same time, and of course the technology to do that is now possible. So I'm going into a venue in London, and simultaneously readers will go into bookshops all over the world, or into libraries, or into places that they've organized together, or they'll just log on in the privacy of their own homes. We will all, in a sense, connect, and they can question me directly, and I can give answers, and I'll also give a small talk about the work I'm doing at the moment, the film, generally where my work is. I'm a great enthusiast of book clubs, partly because I think it's a very, very interesting way to read books. They were always designed to be read by a group of people reading almost at the same time. So when they first came out in the 18th century as a kind of mass market fiction, everybody read everything that was published because there was such a small reading group and such a limited publication. And so I think in a way that's a very interesting recovery of what reading means. It doesn't necessarily have to be an isolated private joy. For me, as an author, the book clubs, especially the book clubs in the States, have simply made me. It was the book clubs who spotted The Other Boleyn Girl, who ordered it for their readers' groups, who passed it amongst themselves. And I was actually in the States as this started to happen, and I could see every time I went and did an event, we were doubling and trebling the numbers, and I could see that what was happening was the enthusiasm for The Other Boleyn Girl just rolled out in the most extraordinary way. It was tremendously exciting, and it was absolutely the book clubs and the readers recommending the book one to another. And it was only after that process had started that we really realized, as you know, the publishers realized and I realized that we were getting a huge bestseller on our hands. And all of my books have been favorites with the book clubs, and I'm immensely grateful to them for their support. I think my interest in the Tudor period really comes exactly as a lot of my readers from the book The Other Boleyn Girl, that I was reading around in the Tudor period thinking I would probably like to write a book somewhere set in that period, and I just came across this wonderful character, Mary Boleyn, who's sister to the more famous Anne, and the whole family dynamic and sibling dynamic and what it revealed about the character and the power of those two women and the court that they lived in and the death that Mary survived but Anne did not. It just seemed to me to be such a wonderful story, which was in a sense known to history, but nobody had seen the potential of it as a novel. And so that was really my introduction as a writer to the Tudor period. And since then, every time I write a novel about the Tudors, I become more interested in someone who turns up in the research, and then I find the next book I want to write is about them. I think also it's a period of time where there are tremendous changes taking place in English society, which in the end makes the early modern period. So it becomes Protestant and it becomes mercantile, it becomes capitalistic ultimately. It starts the foundation of an empire, it starts the exploration of the Western world. And so it's a period of real change and takeoff. And I think to write about a society at that time is always very, very interesting. The Boleyn inheritance I decided to write from the perspective of three women because it's the story of the three women. There are the two queens, Anne of Cleves and Catherine Howard, and the woman who is lady-in-waiting to both of them, Jane Parker, Lady Rochford, who was married to George Boleyn. And her role as entrapper and conspirator is absolute key to the divorce of one and the death of the other. So it became a tremendously interesting story to move through these three different voices. Of course, along the way, you get very involved with the characters. I don't think anybody could like Jane Parker because she really is a truly, truly terrible person. But I got interested in her motivation. I found I had some sympathy for her by the end of the novel. And I absolutely loved Anne of Cleves, who seemed to me to start as a very straightforward, innocent young woman who learned from experience but was never made cynical by it. And she, in a sense, is the happy ending which, you know, one longs to have in a book, which is that she actually survived Henry and ended up going to the coronation of her stepdaughter, Elizabeth. And I suppose my other favourite in the novel will be Catherine Howard, who is, you know, a profoundly silly girl and remains a profoundly silly girl from start to finish and doesn't have time to grow up. And I think anyone who has been a silly girl or is mother of a silly girl, you can't help but love them. You just can't. And Catherine Howard seems to me an extremely endearing character.